welcome back. As promised, I told you I was going to get Will back on for part 3 of Obi Wan Kenobi. We're here back in
Obi Wan Kenobi.
That's where I thought it was like.
It sounded like you said Obi Wan.
I did.
I make mistakes like that. Don't worry. I'm just like, wait. I was like Obi. I'm like, all right, okay.
Obi, but no. Terrell again, back again. Will from D Geek Will channel. If you haven't watched it, please check it out again. Get yourself some laughs in, some good review content. This guy's covering everything. If I'm not covering it, he's probably covering it. So
you probably cover more stuff than I do, but yeah, I try.
And you just put out I think you just put out a Kenobi review too.
Yeah, I've got my episode 3 review up and another review for a movie that I went to see the other day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Jumping right in. I had a whole Star Wars episode 3 part 3 joke, but that completely flew out the window. It's
it's not real. I mean, there's something about the 3rd episode of Star Wars of stuff where they have to set people on fire, apparently, and that's what they did in this episode. Which I admitted when I did my review, like this episode proved me wrong completely. It accelerated a lot of what I was expecting to see later than we got in this episode. And I was very, very surprised yet happy about it. So
I think there was a lot of happiness along just for this entire ride, and like you said, I was wrong too. But like as we pick back up from the previous after Reva declaring her love for Anakin Skywalker. And
kind of, sort of. I mean, she's obsessed.
And we talked about this last week. Just in having that Reva be in the end to know that Vader is Skywalker. You know what I mean? Because that's not a personal. You don't get that in your Stormtrooper package or your Empire package. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's like the Inquisitors were created by Anakin / Vader. He created them to hunt down Jedi. So, I mean, maybe some of them do know, but it doesn't seem like the other 2 remaining ones technically know that that's Anakin. Or if they do, they're not saying it out loud. But
they just recognize him as Lord Vader. You know what I mean? We're not about to call him by a slave name. You know what I mean?
No, I did like the opening though, because they used a lot of audio from episode 1, 2, and 3 with Liam Neeson and with some splicing audio from Reva while they're setting up the reintroduction of Vader after he his tease at the end of episode 2. So I really liked that sequence because it shows how much Obi-Wan is tormented by his failures and things like that. And the whole thing is like by the end of this episode, he is at his lowest point.
You definitely see that. Like you said, just jumping back into it, we come back into picking back up where Obi-Wan and Leia left off, and them getting off planet to this location that was given to them by your boy Kamal Nanjiani, who we for a second, I was thinking about what you said the other day. He might he might actually be a Jedi.
Yeah, I kind of thought that too by the time this episode was really rolling.
And I was like, maybe he's just a really good comment. I don't know, but we found out like they get there and they're supposed to meet up with the location, and they already feeling kind of iffy. Whole planet's already crawling with Empire.
Right. It was one of their mining planets that they took over after the fall of the Republic. And then you get the introduction of Freck, who was a little weird mole looking guy who was like super fanboy of the Empire, which
kind of shows the mentality of a lot of the galaxy. It's just like, oh, this is a military organization that's running us, but we're super fans. And it's kind of a funny way of showing the difference between him and then later on when you meet I think his name's Tala or Talia. who was the one that helped them out.
I think a lot of it is too.
Tyler,
People,
sorry.
A lot of the people are just trying to get by at this point. You know what I mean? Like, what are they going to do? They're going to be like, oh, F the Empire. Let them join the Rebel Alliance in like 20 years.
Yeah. Well, actually, I got my timelines mixed up. This is 10 years after. So the time frame between the end of episode 3 and A New Hope is 19 years. So we're more than halfway through. So in 9 years is when you get A New Hope, basically.
And Obi-Wan just turns gray and looks like an old man because like I have no idea how old he's supposed to be, like late 40s, mid 40s at this point.
Late 40s probably.
Okay.
Well, actually, again, you can start justifying because you're going from Ewan McGregor to Alec Guinness.
Right.
That's the problem. I'm assuming Obi-Wan is in his rather late, like early 40s or to mid 40s at this point, because that would put him around like the 50s by the time you get to Alec Guinness, and you can justifiably say that probably close.
Right. Yeah. You can get past people do age. Not that he was super old.
No, but you're on a desert planet with
right.
2 suns. You're going to get wrinkly very, very quickly. So yeah, I'm not surprised at that point.
Just covered into this whole thing with like the Empire and Obi-Wan and Leia, and of course they're trying to get their story straight, and Leia jumps right on board, because he thinks we're gonna get the whole thing about her looking like her grandfather, because to her everybody looks old apparently. To kids everybody looks old.
Yeah, and even like I know, like I like Leia's. After sitting with her more than an episode,
right.
Like she's totally fine. I know people were being assholes and stuff, but yeah, no, I think the actress playing her, like for her age, is doing a fantastic job, embodying the character and the spirit of the character, and those subtle moments where you see that that Obi-Wan is remembering a lot of what he saw in Padme and Leia, and I think the way they sort of blend that in throughout the episode within their interactions actually is a lot of fun.
And apparently she's going to be around for a lot longer than I anticipated. Because I
like a lot of the callbacks to Padme, because I mean, as we know, we almost get no mention of her like later on down the series.
Yeah,
there's no conversation about it, because I mean, of course, that whole pregnancy was supposed to have been a secret. You know what I mean? Like all of that was supposed to happen. Like,
right.
So like only like 3 people in the world know that she had that baby. To Anakin, he thinks those kids are gone, they're dead. So
yeah, it's a very small amount of people that know that his children are alive at this point in history and stuff like that. And even still, the whole, when she says she remembers what her mother looked like, there's always confusion with that line, with how they place the timeline once Revenge of the Sith happened, comparing to with like Return of the Jedi, when Leia says, "Oh, I remember what I have like glimpses of what my mother looked like." I'm like, that's kind of impossible, unless again, part of it could be just her precognitive abilities through the Force, because she's very, at this point, and we're seeing that with the way they're portraying her at this younger age, that she's already displaying Force sensitivity, and a lot of that would give her potentially like some visions of like the past and the future. So
I'm happy that they are showing that, because I mean, like, definitely not that they didn't show it in like Empire and Return of the Jedi, because they definitely do. With Leia picking up on certain things and figuring out that Luke was her brother, yada yada yada, without there being a conversation. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm glad that they're showing a little bit more of that as she's younger. But you were just talking about like everybody's kind of hail the Empire attitude. And,
well, not everybody, but I mean, in terms of Freck, who was actually voiced by Zach Braff, does the voice of Freck. Yeah, I thought it was Seth Rogen.
I thought it was Seth Rogen too.
Right, but then I was reading someplace online and were like, no, it's Zach Braff. I'm like, oh wow. And speaking of voiceovers, that was James Earl Jones reprising the role as Darth Vader. He was doing all the voice,
as he should.
Yeah. Which well, some people thought they were just doing like a voice modulation and having Hayden Christensen do it, but no, Hayden's in the suit, obviously, and just even with the tease of the hallucination that Obi-Wan saw of Anakin when they were walking through the field, I think we're going to get more flashbacks of that potentially. Maybe some Clone War era stuff that, like some live action, retellings of some of the scenes that you saw in the animated series. They might actually do something like that. But no, I was happy to hear that was James Earl. Because I was like, at first I was like, oh yeah. I was like, when somebody was like, no, it might not be him. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure that's his voice. I mean, he might as well.
Yeah. I thought, maybe just because it was like a younger version of Anakin, that we would still hear a little bit of his original voice, but of course you don't have the entire situation burnt up. Which I thought, if I'm not mistaken, that is how the episode opens too. Like it opens with Anakin suiting up, and this is the first time we've seen Vader from top to bottom in live action, getting the arms and legs. Because before it's just like top down, we just see the helmet come down.
And in terms of this, yes, I mean in terms of like the full assembly of this, you see glimpses of it in episode 3 when he's first putting it on, but this is like, oh, this is his daily routine basically. And then
kill me.
yeah, pretty much. But this is also the first real, there's only other time we got to see his castle on Mustafar was in Rogue One briefly when Krennic went to visit Vader and they had that cameo. But this is the first time we actually got to see the castle and the whole setup and stuff like that. But even like having Vader in this episode, it really kind of defines why he is considered one of the greatest villains, because of the presence and the fear that he gives off just by, like, even just his movements are very powerful. Like, it sounds dumb, but when he gets off the call with Reva and stands up and then walks over and stares out, I'm like, that's a power move for no reason. Like, he didn't have to do that, but he is like, no one else was in the room. So who else was going to watch him do that? But no, it was it's very much in the presence. And I felt like, I think I said this in my review, but this was the most brutal I've ever seen a Star Wars scene happen. Like in terms of like just evil for evil's sake. I mean, like very, like the whole,
that's what you want to see.
Well, the whole, like with the whole third act when he first makes his presence, when he shows up, which I was surprised that they had him show up, but yeah, he showed up. And I'm like, yeah, you have to show him at his most evil, because even during the original trilogy, yes, he was a baddie, but it was more so we were told he was a baddie with very minimal glimpses. No, this man's walking through the street snapping the necks of kids, which I'm like, that's a lot. I mean, I wasn't expecting it, but that was a lot. I think I jumped ahead a lot there. I skipped kind of a pivotal.
I mean, because the whole whatever, like like you said earlier, like I didn't expect to get Vader in this at all, not in the capacity that they gave us, and I really thought they were going to hold that off until like
I expected like episode 5.
Yeah.
Before the finale,
I didn't think we were going to see any lightsabers. I didn't think we were going to see any of that.
Yeah, it just shows that as a fan, you don't know what the fuck you want until you actually watch it. So, I mean, that's fine. But
just Vader, man. Like I said, that's what I was hoping that we would get out of this series, and having Hayden Christensen come back is seeing a Vader in his prime. You know what I mean? And seeing what we've seen through comics, what we've seen through video games.
Right.
Get that Vader, you know what I mean? Like that, just does not give any fucks. Like it just killed. And as soon as we come on scene, like the music, the tone, the lighting, everything about that is just like, it was supposed to come off scary as he's dragging somebody and still walking.
Because he's on a singular mission. Like the second he
he felt Obi-Wan. He knew that's what he wanted. Was obviously, and that would explain more why he wasn't. If we're talking about the confrontation at the quarry, you know, there's a method to his playing the boogeyman, stalking him through the darkness, and then just appearing. Which I think I made a joke about it. I'm like, he really shouldn't be able to do that. I mean, he has 2 lead feet, so it really doesn't make any sense. He's sneaking up on him like that. But whatever, it's fine. I'm not going to complain about it. It was an intense scene. And even more intense when he's, you know, pretty much dragging him through a trail of fire,
right?
Which is just, of course, symbolic of what happened to him. Is like
10 years of petty.
Well, not even petty, but even when Obi-Wan asked him, like, "What have you become?" And he's like, "I am what you made me," and that's true. And again, the parallels of this compared to the parallels of The Last Jedi are very much similar, because the whole reason Kylo Ren was basically because of the one moment that Luke had a sense of weakness and tried to kill him. Spoiler alert for like a 8-year-old movie, but yeah. But yeah, it's that whole third act was just it invoked a level of intenseness and of concern, even for myself, even though we know the outcomes of the characters. We know that he's not going to kill him. Like, he's not going to die, but he's getting dragged through fire. I'm like, ooh.
Right. That's the problem with dealing with something where we already have a set timeline of like what things going to happen. Like, you can only change but so much, but you can fill in like that void space. Like I said, like, we know they can't decapitate Obi-Wan. He's not going to cut off an arm. You know what I mean? Like, we know how he ends up later on in The New Hope. So there's only but so many of the toys that you can take out a player kill. And speaking of that, like, we're talking about the Grand Inquisitor, and I was looking at something, and the writers or whatever of the show were like, no, it was a big thing about them, like, saying that they canon matters, like, you know, everything.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so
it's not going to break canon. Like, trust me.
So pretty much letting us know right there that the Grand Inquisitor that we see, he's not dead.
No, I didn't even think he was dead. I mean, again, the 2 prevailing theories that I have is rather A, he's not dead, he's going to show up towards the end of the series, or B, he is, and they just have another same species.
Right.
Also going by Grand Inquisitor.
Whatever his species is doesn't die from that type of damage.
Right.
Because it was just like a, swift in and out.
Yeah.
But again, I mean, like I said, we can't die because all of the cartoons, all of the cartoon stuff is canon.
Right. And they have a different location for where he actually died.
So,
but that's why when people are like, "Oh, they broke," I'm like, just your episode 2, calm down. It's like, just watch something all the way through and then bitch about it.
We're so mad about this. Let's throw some racist shit at Revla's character.
That's such a. I mean, I'm not surprised, but I am. But I'm.
I always hear like Star Wars fans are like the worst fans. Not including myself, but
it's I mean fans are. It's not even that. I mean, I appreciate Lucasfilm kind of stepped up and took a stance on it. Granted, it's about time, considering the fact there have been a number of other people before, Moses Ingram, who have experienced this sort of thing that Lucasfilm didn't really make a lot of fuss about. Kelly Marie Tran, John Boyega. But just, but yeah, I also like the introduction of the Path, which was like the weird underground tunnel system that they have set up, and then they gave I think it's Quinlan Voss, I think is the character I'm remembering now, who was referenced in the episode as one of the people kind of working with the Path to try to get people to safety, help ferry like Force sensitive people. Quinlan Voss was a character, I believe, from Clone Wars who was a Jedi, but then he fell to the dark side, but then ended up going back to the light side. So he's very similar, like how Mace Windu was set up to kind of have a little bit of dealings with both the light and dark side of the Force, that sort of thing. So I
I don't know if that's a tease that we're going to see him potentially make a live action debut in the series, but it would make a lot of sense because they had him. He was in episode 1 or episode 2 as a background character, and he had a bigger presence in Clone Wars. I remember reading about that, but that was the only like Easter egg I remember seeing in the episode in terms of when they were in the path with
Jedi Underground Railroad.
Yeah, pretty much. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah,
but
I mean, that whole thing is. I find it interesting too, you know, and obviously we'll get into it, you know, as the show goes on. But when we come into A New Hope, it's, you know, Jedi are all but like fiction at that point. You know what I mean? Like, you know, people talk about Jedi as just like, what? You know what I mean? Like they never existed, and you know, they make it seem like it was like, you know, years prior to, you know, like that event. And of course, you know, as time goes on, they add stuff on, you know. We now know what the definitive timeline is, but even now, like 10 years in, like people, they talk about Jedi, it's just like, oh, you know.
I think it's more so hush hush.
Right.
I mean, it's not, it's like, I don't think people's memories just went away. It's really more so you think about the Empire at this point in time are all about trying to maintain a level of control because they're still using the Galactic Senate as a front to still keep a stranglehold on the galaxy because they don't have the power set up to really manage everybody. That's why they stopped using clone troopers and enlisted the help of actual like recruitment of regular people. And then the whole reason that they didn't devolve the Senate until A New Hope was because that's when the Death Star was completed. So it's not unlikely that they would use their influence around the galaxy to basically make talking about Jedi an outlaw thing, even though people know about it. So, like, if people hear you talking about Jedi, that just gives stormtroopers a reason to, you know, pull a trigger. Pretty much.
I just thought it was interesting too because you still technically have these Jedi and these Sith running around with lightsabers, and you know, I mean, like these Inquisitors, which are, you know, essentially the same thing.
Well, keep in mind, Inquisitor isn't necessarily considered Sith. I mean, they're, you know, when it comes to Sith are only, this is always the rule of 2. Like there's only ever 2 at any given time. Right. You can have dark side users, but they don't have to necessarily be classified as Sith. Same thing with a light side user not being considered a Jedi, because like Jedi is like technically a title. So you can have a Force sensitive person who could wield a lightsaber, but not necessarily be considered a Jedi or a Sith. So that's when you fall into that gray area of like a Bendu.
Right, which they take advantage of a lot in like the video games and stuff like that with those particular characters.
Right, somebody who doesn't necessarily lean towards light or dark, or you can have people who are more light side than dark side and still not necessarily be classified as Sith or Jedi. So, which is pretty much where Inquisitors fall into that role of being because there's no way that, and I don't even know. I'm assuming the Emperor knew about the Inquisitors because I know you would think you would have to, but I think because they don't classify it as a Sith, that's probably why he's like, okay, you can have your little toys, whatever. Because if he knew that they were treating them as Sith, then he would probably go on a rampage and start killing a bunch of them. Because there's only supposed to be 2, and that's why there's only one Darth. Well, technically 2 Darth, but because you have Darth Sidious and Darth Vader. But yeah, it's a really good episode. I thought episode 3 was really solid.
It's definitely worth the rewatch. I love the continuation of this ongoing stormtrooper trope that they continue to do in every series. With the Mandalorian, this and whatever. It's just bad. You know what I mean? Like they're not even like clone trooper bad, because I feel like clone troopers were way better because they had to.
Yeah, clone trooper. But that makes sense why a clone trooper were being obsolete, because they're probably getting more difficult to manage, especially at that point in time. But
especially knowing how easily they can defect, as we see with like the Bad Batch and other various like situations with troopers. Yeah. Plus, they probably don't want another enemy to try to come in and control them, so that's always like a big thing.
And it's easier to rely on people who are scripted into the idea that the Empire is the best thing in the galaxy than to have people trying to control them with chips that could malfunction. That could malfunction or do whatever. So it makes total sense. Again, this all falls into that timeline of like Reign of the Empire, which they've actually like started to separate. Because you have like New Republic. Sorry, you have like the the Fall of the Republic era. Then you have like Reign of the Empire. Then you have like Rise of the Resistance. Then your new trilogy, which is the Rebellion era or the Fall of the Empire, and then you have like New Republic stuff, and then like Rise of the First Order sort of era. So they're breaking things up in the timelines. That's how they're trying to situate all these new shows that are coming out, because there are so many coming out in the next like couple years.
You think Disney? I mean, definitely you've seen my man Kenobi, my man Ben go off with the blaster, and then see that on more than one occasion. He turns to a gunfighter.
A weapon for an uncivilized time is basically right. What he would say. But yeah, I mean his gunman skills are actually pretty good. I like what Ewan's been doing, especially in this episode, because we are at that low point for Kenobi. He's at his lowest point by the end of the episode. He's burned, he's scarred. Leia's on the run because Reva got up to her pretty much. But again, she don't know that that's her boss's daughter.
No.
And Reva, as much as I love her character and love the sort of chaotic energy that she's providing for the show, holy crap. I feel like she's the trigger happy type. And she's proven she's the trigger happy type.
Right.
So that's why I'm wondering, they're really setting up for somebody's got to show up to save Leia, because clearly Ben's not in a position to save her at this point. So someone else has to show up. This is why I'm like, Quinlan Vos might actually make a debut in the series, which would be kind of dope. But
I really just did not expect Anakin, because like you said earlier, like if Vader wanted to kill him right then and there, he could have. Like, really holding him up in the air, could have tossed the saber at him, which we've seen, whatever.
No, again, of all of the Jedi that he's probably had a hand in killing at this point, this is personal. And the series is making it well known that this is personal for when it comes to Vader. And it makes sense. It's like he probably blames him for everything, for losing Padme, for his body being screwed up. I mean, it's like, we are years before, which makes sense why, when you think about it, like, why couldn't Obi-Wan have turned Anakin back the way Luke did? I'm like, because Luke's his son. That's a difference between a parent and a child, and then someone that you had a good working relationship with, basically. So yeah, and he didn't have a hand of pretty much burning and maiming you alive, pretty much. Again,
it seems to be a generational curse, man. Like just cutting off hands and limbs.
But I am looking forward to seeing, now that he's at his lowest point, the slow climb back to the point of where he will, because he sees all these people around him still fighting. Right. And that's kind of one of the things that the episode does a really good job doing, is that with his conversation with Tala and with seeing all the names of people in the safe house, other Jedi and stuff who are still trying to fight, where he, with the first two episodes, made it very clear he was done, but clearly the fight's not done, and this is like I feel like his call to action, which could give us our Qui-Gon Jinn appearance.
Keep hearing about that,
next episode.
We know it has to happen. We know that going forward, that's a part of the training that these Jedis have been able to obtain, and whatever this Jedi astral life thing they got going on. Like, what I mean?
Yeah, I'm very curious if next episode will be more of like a flashback, where we will get to see Hayden and Ewan doing some old school Clone Wars stuff, and then we get, by the end of the episode, we get our Qui-Gon appearance.
I was hoping to get more of a Vader focused episode, like from his perspective. I was hoping to see more of the bad guy Vader stuff going on.
I could see them, if they do a flashback thing next week or this week, depending on whenever you're watching this. I can see them doing a sort of duality type thing, where we are seeing these flashbacks from two different perspectives, from both their perspective. That would kind of solve the issue of giving a Vader centric episode.
Plus, we still need backstory on Reva.
Right, which I think that can all. I'm pretty sure a lot of these answers we're definitely going to get. I don't know, and maybe I don't know if you might know this. Do you think they'll kill Reva off by the end of the series, or do you think she will survive? Will she have a redemption arc?
I hope to God not. I'm so tired of like the bad guy redemption thing, man. Like,
Really?
I am. I feel like it's been like a thing in the last couple of years where like we gotta like if you eat will just be evil. You know what I mean? Like let that character die that way, stay that way. Everybody doesn't need to be redeemed, and I feel like that's majority of what Star Wars is trying to redeem somebody regardless of whatever they done, and then we see that with Vader and how that ends, where even though he did everything he did, it's let's blame it on this dark side insanity that it caused him to to do all these things.
Well, see, I never thought that he ever. I never thought anybody really ever wrote him off as like, oh, he didn't mean to do it. Like, no, people know. Like, even Luke says is like he was bad. It's like he's still my dad. He was bad. I mean, he just wanted to try to give him a sense of redemption, at least one. I don't mind the redemption trope, especially it depends on the character. It depends because your best villains, and I think I saw this as a meme or something, but it's actually a good quote. The best villains are just broken heroes. And it's so if there is a potential for her to be redeemed, I'm all for it. Because I think her character has a lot of depth because she has motivation, she has reason. Right. It's not just evil for evil's sake is fine. But I
don't feel like you get enough of it these days, though. Like everything is a freaking redemption story.
Well, I mean, I think I remember like just growing up, even something like for example, Power Rangers. Evil was just evil for evil's sake,
right? And
I think after a while that did get kind of samey. So I think it depends on the villain. I think it depends on the villain if it's somebody like, of course, your best example of a villain redemption being good is like Zuko or like Vegeta. Those are like two prime examples.
Those are really good examples. But
so I think if done right, it makes sense. I'm not saying like every villain deserves a redemption. No, like not every villain does deserve a redemption.
Like, what I don't want to see is if they do wind up saving her character, they give her a show and now she's good and yada. I don't want to see that.
I doubt that's the route because not everybody's getting a show. They've talked about this is potentially getting a second season because of the reception that it had on Disney Plus. They're talking about, oh, we want a second season of Kenobi, which I'm like, you could in theory do a second season, logically speaking, but you just have to. You have to make sure it's a good enough story to do a second season. Like,
I think that's a big. I think knowing how many episodes these series are is a big part of issue too. Like, so like, oh, they tell you, yeah, we only doing 6 episodes instead of it just coming out and it just ending. Like you already are like speculating, okay, what they have to do between episodes 1 and 2, how much they have to cover between certain episodes. Like instead of just like watching it just to watch it and not knowing, okay, man, I only got 2 more. They gotta hurry up and do this, and I feel like that's been a big problem with a lot of these shows is knowing how much you have left on the table, and like, okay, now you have to all these expectations of how much they have to cover, and not just for this, but for like some of the Marvel stuff too.
Yeah,
and it's just like,
and I agree with that to a certain extent. My only counter argument would be the expectation side of things. It's the expectation is on the person watching it. Like, what are you expecting out of it? If you know, because that's one issue I feel like with movies in general is like people going with all these expectations, these lofty goals, and if they don't deliver on it, people are like, oh, that's trash. I'm like, well, hold on, that's your expectation. They have a story. Just enjoy the story that they're presenting. So if you can come up with a good enough story that would justify season 2, I'd be all for season 2. Because I'm also a huge fan of Ewan McGregor, so that's just fine. More Ewan, I'm totally okay with it.
No, I think they need to stick with their guns and stick with the one and done that they had originally intended out to do. Like, if this is it, don't water it down, don't overextend it. You know what I mean? Like they tend to do.
Yeah, if you have one immaculate
the Mandalorian multiple seasons makes sense. Like, you know what I mean?
Kinda, yeah.
Right.
Kinda.
That's a completely new character, like, you know what I mean? Like,
right, yeah.
With this, which is, you know, technically this is a continuation of Revenge of the Sith. I mean, no, it is a continuation of all that.
Yeah, it's a bridge gap thing. Yeah,
I feel like we could do what we need to do, and then we can get out.
Right.
Yeah. Right. No, I would agree with that. I would agree with, depending on the character, it's the same reason the Bad Batch is getting a second season, because like there's more to tell with those characters. Yeah, I would say with Kenobi, I agree. Probably a one and done would be good. I don't necessarily say would imagine Reva getting her own series, because that just wouldn't make any sense. But if you wanted to, let's say Kumail Nanjiani is a Jedi and you want to tell his story and maybe somehow incorporate her into that, cool. I'm totally down with that. I mean, obviously they're going to keep coming out with stuff because content. Right. But then there's other plenty of series that haven't gotten season 2s that probably could have justified a season 2.
Right.
I still think Moon Knight should have a season 2.
I feel like we're still, you know, a lot of people they're still working that nostalgia needle real hard. Yeah. And, you know, it's going to be a while before we can get away from the Skywalker saga altogether and just get into a completely new era of Star Wars. Because even with the new stuff coming back, like they were still hitting that button real hard. You know what I mean? So I'm hoping to finally get to a point where we can kind of just freshly reset and get away from all of that. And just I know, like, and just
I would agree with that 100%. At Star Wars or the galaxy itself is such a huge place. That was always one of my biggest gripes about, you know, how they tied in so many of the newer characters to legacy characters. Like did Rey need to be a Palpatine to still get the whole point across about her choosing to be a Skywalker? That's fine. I mean, the whole Palpatine drawing, I get where they were going with it, but it wasn't necessarily. I was fine with the whole she's a nobody thing.
Right. But I think everybody at that point was fine with it.
Yeah. I don't care that she took the name Skywalker at the end. That's totally fine. But I was more so, it was just like, does she have to be a Palpatine? But anyway, but yeah, eventually I think it will happen. I think there will be because it's such a big galaxy, you have to be able to tell other stories not connected to any of the legacy characters. But being how ingrained they are into the story, you're always going to have some relation. If you mention a Jedi or a Sith, they're just always going to be. But I think something like Ahsoka can tell a story about Jedi and Sith without necessarily having to include a Skywalker, but then it would make no sense to have Ahsoka not reference Anakin at all. It wouldn't make any sense. So I think eventually you will get there, but I think for right now they do want to tap a lot of the unknowns of certain characters that are Skywalker adjacent.
No, I got you on that.
Yeah.
But
just no more Book of Boba Fett. I mean,
I think we're done with that.
I love Tamara Morrison, but no, they don't love the character. I get it.
I think we're done with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was an overall great episode. I'm glad to have gotten some Vader, man, and like I said, it was surprising. You know, Obi-Wan acting scared with his lightsaber, man.
So rusty. Poor guy.
He got beat up. Like,
definitely hitting them on force flips.
Yeah. No, not in this episode. Maybe not ever, but who knows?
Like I said, seeing Vader get a little bit of clap back with the oil and the fire and burning his arm up a little bit. But like I said, they can only touch body parts that we know have not been chopped off or whatever. So you can cover that up with your robe or whatever. We could have said like, oh, okay, he got burned, and we got. We can do that, but
there is a thing called force healing, so there's potentiality that you can ex machina your way out of that.
Yeah, but I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's exciting. It's gonna be an exciting three more episodes of this series, and then also like Miss Marvel too.
We're gonna sell a lot of toys and lightsabers, and I hope Reva does get got. I don't need a redemption story, so I'm saying it here first. Let us know.
In terms, just to clarify, you are talking about the character get got, just because she's bad. No, I know. I'm just saying the internet's a messed up place right now. But yeah, no, I like her character. I'd like to see more from her, so I potentially don't want to see her get got. But I I want some understanding. And if she's just a tragic character, I'm all for it. Just a tragic character. I mean, like she's not evil. She has reason to be evil.
Right.
And if her downfall is tragic, but resonates to, you know, to the remaining characters as to like motivation going forward to inform, like, we can't let this happen to anybody else sort of deal, then that makes total sense for the story that they're telling. Because a lot of this story is really just about moving on and trying to pick yourself up after being at your lowest point. And I think that's what this is really sort of informing, at least to me anyway. Sorry, I keep messing with this thing because it's like not angling right.
One more question, and we can get out of here. You think we're gonna get the Emperor within the next 3 episodes at all?
No.
Never see him at all?
There's no point. He's off. I mean, I'm assuming he is off making sure a Death Star is being built right now. Obi-Wan was never his. He had nothing personal with anybody in terms of that. So there's no reason for him to show up. This is a personal story between Obi-Wan and Anakin, and just being played out in a different time. And I don't think they're going to bog it down by just trying to do cameo, because it's kind of no point. I think you'll see Qui-Gon before you see the Emperor. I don't even think you'll see Yoda. I think you'll see Qui-Gon before you see Yoda or the Emperor, because they don't have a reason to be there. It's not their fight. This is a personal thing. So the only other personal person involved would be Qui-Gon, because he's the one who brought Anakin on to begin with,
right?
And then left that charge to Obi-Wan, which is another thing that he is probably dealing with in terms of a failure. He failed his master. He failed his apprentice. He's failed the universe, the galaxy. So I get it. So this is a personal story, which is why I feel like Reva being tied in, there's some personal beef she has with Obi-Wan, not just to impress her boss, but I feel like there is a personal sense of something there. And I'm hoping to get some sort of reveal of that.
Oh, let's hope so. Wednesdays at whatever o'clock this airs.
I'm not sure what they're going to do too, because you also got Miss Marvel coming out Wednesday now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they're both now at the same time.
2 for 1. You know, like people complain.
Yeah, it's complaining when you got to edit and you still have to work and do other stuff.
Right.
That might take you away from home. So, yeah.
Let us know in the comments what you think about the fate of Reva, Vader being petty, and burning his former master. I wouldn't
say it's petty, but I get it. If somebody burned you and left you for dead, that's not petty. That's a revenge.
He was acting up about that. He deserved it.
Revenge.
he choked his wife. He
choked his own wife. That's not even. That's not even Obi-Wan's fault. That's something you need to accept the responsibility of your actions.
Exactly.
He did. It just came in the form of being cocky and not realizing someone had the high ground. I mean,
but yeah, let us know what you think, and hopefully we can get Will back in his free schedule. Like I said, for episode 4, as we gush over another episode, and hopefully we get more Vader. And on that note, this has been Terrell, and we will see you guys later. Peace.
See you.